Hello, today we're going to talk about how do we find the volume and surface area of cones. And so here's our formula. Surface area equals pi RL plus pi r squared. Now this pi r, if we're talking about our pyramids, well, that is half p. And so that's how this relates to our pyramids, because remember the circumference is 2 pi r. So if we don't put the 2, that means that we divided by half. And of course pi r squared is the area of my base. And again, that's emphasized here with this pi r squared and that b there. It's the same formula. It's just sometimes we want to leave it as the pi r squared because that's what we're actually dealing with. We're dealing with circles. Let's tackle a couple of examples. So on our first example, to find our surface area and volume, we're going to need to know three things. I'm going to need to know my radius, I'm going to need to know my height, and my slant height. If I know those three things, then I can start plugging things into my formula. Well, my radius was given as 1, my height was given as 2, and for my slant height, we're going to need to use Pythagorean theorem. So 1 squared plus 2 squared would give me c squared, and this is c. It's also L, it's my slant height. And 2 squared is 4 plus 1 makes 5 equals c squared. So c equals the square root of 5. And so those are my radius, height, and slant height. Let's go ahead and start with our surface area. Our formula for surface area again was a surface area equals pi RL plus pi r squared. So I put pi times 1 times the square root of 5 plus pi times 1 squared. Well, this gives me the square root of 5 pi plus, well, 1 squared is just 1, so that just gives me pi. But for my final answer, I'm actually going to do just a little bit of factoring. And if I divide both of these things by pi, I can say that this is 1 plus the square root of 5 pi. And so I'm going to write that down as my surface area. 1 plus the square root of 5. Wrap those in parentheses. Pi. And again, to go from here to here, I just divided these two by pi and moved the 1 in front. So that's my surface area. And now for volume. Remember, volume equals pi r squared h over 3. So that means that I have pi times my radius of 1 squared times my height of 2 over 3, which 1 squared is just 1, so 1 times 2 is 2, so that gives me 2 pi over 3. And so my volume would be 2 pi over 3. And now for our other example. On this one, they've actually given us the volume, and so we're going to need to use that volume to find our height and our slant height. So again, we are going to need our radius, our height, and our slant height. And they've told us that the volume equals 432 pi. And remember, my formula for that was pi r squared h divided by 3. So 432 pi equals pi. I do not know what my radius is, but I do know that my height is 9 over 3. I can simplify this over here and say that 432 pi, 9 divided by 3 is 3, so 3 pi r squared. When I divide both sides by 3 pi, makes the pi's go away, and so if I have 432 divided by 3, that's going to give me 144 to equal my r squared, which means that r equals 12. And so I'm going to come over here to my radius and mark that as equal to 12. And now I need my slant height, because to find the surface area I need the slant height. And so to get that, I'm going to have to draw my right triangle. Remember, this is actually part of my cone. I'm just drawing this triangle right here from my cone. And I know that this is a radius of 12, a height of 9, and I'm trying to figure out what this is. So 9 squared plus 12 squared equals c squared. 225 is c squared, which means that c equals 15. So my slant height is 15. And so for my surface area, remember that equals pi r L plus pi r squared. So pi times a radius of 12 times a slant height of 15 plus pi times a radius of 12 squared. 12 times 15, that'll give me 180 pi. 12 squared is 144 pi, which gives me a total surface area of 324 pi. And so here this is over here. We're going to let this up so you can see, since I didn't have to scoot it over correctly. But that's how we find the volume and surface area of a cone.